was brought into the world in 1954, so my considerable years were spent growing up, affected by the 60s and mid-70s in a tiny town in upstate Ohio. At the point when I say little, I mean one light at Broadway and Primary. There were around 40 organizations in the focal point of town. The pharmacy soft drink shop was right on one of those corners. There was likewise the tool shop, a little supermarket, Ben Franklin's service station, and a hairstyling salon. We had Baptist, Methodist, Lutheran, and Catholic places of worship, and most everybody went to one of them week after week. You understand everything. It was Mayberry. We likewise had a library, a mail center, and the prison. The prison was set up so you could undoubtedly slip directly past the cop work area multiple times out of 10 to go check whether anybody was in prison. Assuming there was, we would get things done for them. Go get cigarettes. No difference either way. We never tried to inquire, "What are you in for?" Youngsters. I was an inquisitive, unique, and totally wild and blameless youngster. Somewhat later came the death of JFK, the social equality development, the Vietnam fights, and the nonconformist unrest, which I participated in becoming perhaps of the earliest hipsters. Thus, perhaps you can now think about where this story is driving. Catching a ride was typical in those years, so I did it a lot. For barely 3 years, I made many excursions all around the US and Canada, much to the disappointment of my mom. Some of the time, I took companions. Some of the time, I went alone, continuously with no cash, no garments, and no problem. Such countless individuals attempted to caution me of the risks. However, being exceptionally youthful and guileless and feeling very strong, I overlooked the entirety of their good-natured guidance. This wasn't my most memorable excursion, nor was it the last. Yet it is the most important, and you'll presently comprehend the gravity of the exceptionally narrow escape that it was. June 1969. I was 14. I was going through the night with my companion, Dina, who lived in an adjoining reflected town. I convinced her to accompany me to San Francisco. She coincidentally had a sibling living out there that she had not found in some time. So we went out across the cowfield to the thruway and stood out our thumbs. It never took long to get a ride, as you can most likely envision. We got many rides. A band visit transport got us while heading to a gig in Chicago. However, we would have rather not made that enormous of a diversion, so we passed. I can't recall who the band was. I recall one more ride when we got into a convertible Cadillac with 4 people of color and hit up a party in Darktown, Columbus, Ohio. We were the main white individuals at this party, and let me tell you, we had a ton of fun. I never felt undesirable or at serious risk. As a matter of fact, the decent woman that lived in that condo gave me a shirt which I believed was so kind. Presently, as a grown-up, I understand she was attempting to cover me up. God favor her. The following ride was cool until he got another catch. A solitary person who continued to bother him about how much difficulty he would have been in on the off chance that he got found taking these 2 underage young ladies across state lines. I turned out to be extremely disturbed and told him to shut up. We ought to have gotten out at that moment, yet we remained. He wasn't hazardous, simply irritating. Indeed, the driver halted for gas in Iowa, and Dina and I went into the bathroom to clean up. At the point when we emerged, the police were sitting tight for ourselves, and we wound up in the Iowa City prison. I'm certain our folks were reached right away, despite the fact that I don't remember this. We were a remarkable fascination in this little prison. The police would come up and converse with us and play a card game. They would bring us cigarettes, candy and donuts, another Mayberry. I don't think we were there for a really long time before Dina's mother had driven out to get us, and after a discussion with her little girl, she chose to drive us the remainder of the way to California. That is a little more than 900 miles. Staggering. I sang to the radio the whole way to Nevada. I particularly recall the mamas and the daddies, "Are you going to San Francisco?" Later we set up for lodging in Reno. Boring! This isn't the very thing I pursued. I attempted to talk Dina into simply taking off. I understand now, as a grown-up, what a horrible, narrow-minded act that would have been, and the way in which obliterating that would have been to her mother. Fortunately for everybody, she wouldn't do that, so I remained. We at last wound up in San Francisco, right at Level and Ashbury, close to Berkeley School, where all the hipster activity was, with her mother following along. It was all so overpowering to me. I was cool for our little town. However, this stuff, as way over my head. I referenced how exceptionally guileless I was. I was not completely mindful of things like chronic drug use, but rather I was direct at Needle Park. Seeing everybody strung out on drugs terrified me to death. I saw different things too that I can't specify. Obviously, I was stunned. I needed to return home, and I have at no point ever needed to return to California in the future, and have never come back, even right up to the present day. I don't recollect how long I was gone on that specific experience, yet presently I was home staring at the television with my mother. It was July, and it was all around the report about the Manson family and the scandalous killings. I then acknowledged how close I had come to being gotten by them and potentially becoming one of the family. Imagine a scenario in which I would have taken off on my own, searching for experience, and had not remained with Dina and her mother that evening, catching a ride alone through the desert, 9 hours from Produce Farm. Imagine a scenario where that person had not transformed us into the police in Iowa, and we would have been out there with both of us. Without a doubt, I or the two of us would have gotten by one of them. Later, I figured out that the family was selecting individuals from Haight Church Ashbury, and furthermore, the way in which angered me was on the grounds that we were unable to lose her mother. I'm grateful that I didn't become involved with that. I was certain I was ready to go, particularly assuming that they would have gotten tightly to me before I made it the entire way to California. In the entirety of my undertakings, I was never beat up, assaulted or killed. I truly accept that I was under divine assurance.